Hello, fantasy football fans. Welcome to the Thanksgiving episode of Week 13 episode of the 9 Route, the fantasy football show that goes deep to help you win. I'm your host, Austin Lee, and I'm joined, as always, by Alex Miglio. Happy Thanksgiving, Alex. How are you?
Happy Thanksgiving, Austin Lee, and to all those Americans and Canadians out there. No, it's not Canadian Thanksgiving.
No. We can't offend the Canadians right off the top of the show.
No, but you know what? Canadian Thanksgiving is awesome. I don't know if anybody's ever done that, but we'll talk about that another time. It is American Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving. Yeah, on the East Coast it started 8 minutes ago, so we are officially the first fantasy football podcast of Thanksgiving. That was our sole goal tonight.
We're like that Black Friday sale that started early.
Yes.
On Thursday.
Yes. Everyone's lined up just waiting to buy a toaster that's $5 off. Something, I don't know. I haven't done Black Friday since like DVDs were the hot new thing, so I kind of dodged it. Today
I'm gonna go stand in line to buy 10 DVDs this Friday.
I did that once, but it was like right when DVDs came out for the first time. They were like $1 bazillion a piece.
I need Lord of the Rings.
The one DVD to rule them all. So hey, it's Thanksgiving, so we're gonna have some fun here tonight. We are serving up a feast of fantasy advice for your Thursday games. We have a cornucopia of QB changes in the NFL, and the marshmallows on top of the casserole will be our daily fantasy sports picks of the week. I'm from the South, and just about every casserole requires marshmallows or cornflakes to be on top of it. Did you grow up with marshmallows on top of sweet potato casseroles or anything like that, Alex?
No, cornflakes. I mean, who does that? That doesn't make any sense to me.
That is an official classy topping of Southern casseroles, the cornflakes.
Well, I don't do that.
Well, then you haven't lived. Let's. Speaking of living, we have a great games on Thursday to live for. I feel like this is the best slate of games we've had on Thanksgiving, and as long as I can remember, all three divisional games. At least two of them are going to be especially interesting to me. But let's start with the first one, the Bears at Detroit, and I want to talk to you and pick your brain about how the Bears will fare fantasy-wise against the tough defense of the Detroit Lions. Are you going to count on any of these guys, or does that Detroit defense make you nervous?
I'll tell you what. I don't trust the Bears, but I expect anything can happen tomorrow. So just take anything we say about Thursday, Thanksgiving Day games with a grain of salt, unless it's the Jets versus the Patriots. In which case we knew the Patriots were going to win and there was going to be a butt fumble. Then yeah, no, but I don't expect
as the prophecies had
the prophecy was fulfilled. Yes, I do expect the Bears to struggle a bit on defense, especially after the Lions gave up a lot of points to the Patriots. I feel like they're going to try to button things up. They're going to they're going to get to Cutler. Cutler's on national television, prime implosion time for Jay Cutler. So just beware. And the Lions are pretty good on defense.
Yeah. This could be a rough game for the Bears. I'm sort of avoiding that situation as much as possible. But on the other side of the ball, I think that a lot of your Lions are great starts here. You got Megatron and Golden Tate. I think are going to be solid starts here. How do you feel about the Lions' running game? It sounds like Reggie Bush is going to give it a go as long as he doesn't, re-injure himself during the game. Which of these three running backs do you like, if any of them?
I don't think I would trust Reggie Bush. I mean, he's coming back from that injury, might be fresh. He just hasn't done anything this year. I don't think he's that good anymore. So I would rather play Joik Bell out of all three of them. He's my favorite guy. Probably lower upside than a Reggie Bush might have, but I think he's safe.
Yeah, I think Bell is a decent cash game play this week. His price is fairly low in DFS, and I think Detroit could be running the clock here at the end of the game with a nice lead at home on Thanksgiving. Speaking of the butt fumble, let's talk about Philadelphia at Dallas, which is the middle game of our Thanksgiving feast. We've got Mark Sanchez and Tony Romo dueling it out in a battle of wits. What's your take? What are you looking for most in this game?
I'm looking for a high-scoring game in which both defenses are roasted. I think that.
I see what you did there. I like that. Okay.
Yeah, so
Would you say that Des Bryant might
dipped my toe into the pun pool. You dove right in right away. So anyway, no, I think it's gonna be a fun game. Both teams are gonna score a lot of points. I like a lot of players in that game.
Yeah, I think Des Bryant is going to carve up this Eagles secondary. He's going to be a guy I'm going to have in a lot of my lineups. Of course, we've got, a lot of the DFS games are a little different this week. Instead of having just one game on Thursday and maybe that game included into the other games, you've got sort of isolated 3-game slate on a lot of sites. So there's a lot of I feel like there's a lot of great stacks on Thursday, and that has sort of depleted the number of great stacks there are on Sunday. But we'll get into that a little bit later when we cover some DFS stuff.
I disagree.
You do? Oh, that's good. I like that. I want to hear more about that later when we cover our DFS picks. Here's the thing. We've seen Jeremy Maclin sort of slip behind Jordan Matthews since Sanchez has taken over as quarterback. Do you feel like Maclin is still the guy you would rank ahead of Matthews, or are you ranking Matthews ahead of Maclin here?
That's a good question. I think that Matthews is going to get more targets. It seems like he's getting more targets with now that just because Sanchez is the quarterback, they have some sort of rapport. However, I think Maclin still has the bigger upside. I mean, not that Matthews doesn't have upside, but I think Maclin is kind of like the deep threat, the guy that can hit the home run. And he's done it a lot this season. So I would still rank him higher than Matthews just by virtue of him being able to do that. Not that Matthews can't, but just because we've seen it from Maclin often.
Yeah, I think I'm to the point where I've got Matthews just a couple spots higher, and I think it kind of hurts both of these guys. Neither one of them is a top 10 receiver for me, but I've got Matthews just a little bit higher until I see Maclin sort of thrive more than Matthews with Sanchez at the helm. And then our last game on Thursday is Seattle at San Francisco. This should be a slugfest. I'm expecting a low-scoring game here. Is there any player on either side that you're excited about in terms of their matchup in this game?
No, I expect this game to be kind of like when the tryptophan hits. Not that the game won't be good, but just from a fantasy standpoint, I don't expect a lot of action. I expect a defensive slugfest, probably something like 20-17 or something. Not to say that some players won't be viable, but I don't really like anybody in particular in this game.
Yeah, I would say that if either of these teams gets over 24 points, that would be gravy in this matchup.
See, now I can't say anything. I was saving that one, but now you've stolen all of them, so I just leave them to you.
No. It's okay. There's plenty of puns to stuff into this podcast that are just
gobbling
this podcast full. Yeah. Oh, sorry, listeners. We're gonna give you an extra dose of puns tonight. We're a little slap happy because it's the holidays. We're getting excited.
I mean, it's Thanksgiving. We're supposed to eat as much as possible, so
Yeah. It's going to be good. No, so I'm excited about those 3 Thursday games.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the 1 o'clock Eastern games on Sunday. Cover some of that action. Let's start with Cleveland at Buffalo. This is a matchup of heavyweights, but I mean, these two teams both have winning records. They're both kind of in the running in this AFC kerfuffle that's going on. What do you think about the Buffalo running backs here? Is there anyone you can trust?
Yeah, it's funny. Like the Browns and Bills. You think you just have this visceral reaction against that from a fantasy standpoint. Like, oh God, that's awful. But actually, they're both not bad this year. But the Buffalo running game, I like them a lot this week. I think it's going to be Fred Jackson. He was coming off that injury. He was still kind of, it was a bad matchup against the Jets, and they actually both scored touchdowns just because the Jets were pretty awful all around last week. But this week, I like Fred Jackson. I expect him to be heavily involved. I think he could get over 100 yards and a touchdown.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be more, closer to 100% healthy here, and then I think we could see that kind of action from him. The guys behind him really aren't a threat to his playing time as long as he can get his health back to where it needs to be. And we kind of got used to thinking that the Buffalo rush defense was this elite rush defense. kind of earlier in the year, but lately, over the last 5 games, they've actually given up 5% more rushing yards and 10% more rushing TDs over sort of opponents' average performance over those past 5 games. So I really like Isaiah Crowell here a lot, and even Terrence West if you need kind of a little more of a desperation play, because it seems like these guys are going to continue to split time quite a bit, even though I like Crowell more than West here. How do you feel about Cleveland and their backfield?
I like Kroll better. He's got the upside and the touches. I feel like he's got a much higher floor and ceiling than West. But both of them are pretty viable. You're right. They're both getting touches. So, but that stat that you brought up, you too can see stats just like that over at Football Guys, because my man Austin here came up with this fantastic table of normalized statistics that you have got to check out. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out on footballguys.com right now. No, wait, after the show. But go check it out.
Thanks, man. No, I appreciate that. It's sort of one of the key factors I use in doing my rankings, and so I'd like to share it with everybody. It's all color-coded and everything. It's sort of like using the Predator's heat vision to decode the matrix of matchups. That's how I like to think of it. It helps me visualize where the good spots and the bad spots are.
Oh, the Predator in the Matrix. That's interesting.
Yeah, who
would win that fight?
Potential.
Who would win that fight, Neo or the Predator? It's got to be Neo.
Yeah, I don't know. Neo could cover himself in mud, and then he would be totally fine. So that's Cleveland at Buffalo. Let's talk about San Diego at Baltimore. I feel like there's not a ton to talk about here. I like the Baltimore guys. I like Justin Forsett here. I think Flacco is a decent spot starter here. If you're going to start a Baltimore wide receiver, who are you going to start?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Neither one?
I mean, they're both performing reasonably well. I mean, Steve Smith, which one? Steve Smith had.
Smith is going to have a great game.
Smith is going to have a great game. Yes. That's all I have to say.
I love it.
I like Torrey Smith. He's got the upside. Not that Steve Smith's kind of like every few games he kind of has like this revenge bug in him or something that activates, and he's like, I'm gonna kill you, and then he destroys the opponent. And he did that last game, so it's deactivated now, and I think it's gonna take a little time to build up again.
Yeah, and then we've got
that's a very scientific observation, by the way. That I used many formulas to get to that point.
There's nothing wrong with a little bit of gut feeling and a little bit of watching the players and knowing what they're capable of. I like Torrey Smith more than Steve Smith in that matchup, but I don't feel great about either one of them, really. Let's talk about Carolina and Minnesota. This is a battle of struggling quarterbacks. This is a game I would not really want to watch, but is there any sort of fantasy play here that you're interested in?
I really like Blair Walsh, the kicker, in this game. And yeah, I think Teddy Bridgewater might be a nice option. The Carolina defense isn't very good. Bridgewater had a decent game last game. Again, it was and it wasn't like a garbage time situation. The Vikings were in that game against the Packers most of the game. So, and I think that the Panthers have a worse defense, and the Vikings are at home. And now he's got his BFF Charles Johnson to throw to, who looks great. So I think that Bridgewater is a decent option. Don't really love Cam Newton. That Minnesota defense is not bad, and he's on the road.
Yeah, I think Charles Johnson is for real. I think that he's had a couple of good games here, and I think that if you're going to pick a guy out of this mess, Kelvin Benjamin, I'm going to like him, no matter what the matchup is. But I think if you're going to go
I'm going to like him
the other side.
Yeah, I'm going to like him. Yeah, whatever. He's on a bye. I like him.
Yeah, totally. He can't get negative points, so I'm putting him in my lineup. He's just going to gobble up those passes on his bye week. But I do like Charles Johnson as well on the other side of the ball. I think that's a decent play. But this is not a game I would look forward to watching unless I was a Carolina or Minnesota fan. Another game on the slate in that 1 o'clock zone is Cincinnati at Tampa Bay. And the Tampa Bay defense has been playing a little better. They're in range for getting to
the top. They can win the NFC South.
They could still win the NFC
They're
South.
2-9, and they could win the NFC South. They're totally in it, and so they're gonna play their hearts out.
Do they control their own destiny? No.
Not quite, but they could still do it.
They're close. They're
We
very
could have
close.
a 4-win team or a 5-win team make the playoffs from the NFC South.
I'm embarrassed. I'm glad that my second favorite team, the Falcons, are just in the mix there. They have none of those teams have any business being
The
playoff
NFC
bound.
South is bad, and they should feel bad.
They should feel bad about it. About hosting. Whoever hosts that playoff game should just be embarrassed for themselves. Then again, though, when Seattle hosted a playoff game, when they had a losing record, they won in the first opening of the playoffs.
If you recall, a couple weeks ago, I said the Saints were going to win the division with a losing record and host the Seahawks, and then they will win on the wings of a Mark Ingram massive run. I still hold that prediction.
It'll be reverse payback.
Yes, it'll be poetic justice. Poetic justice.
That would be awesome. Well, the situation with both of these teams, I think the talk of the town is their running back situations. Both of them are a little bit messy-ish here. Talk about the running backs on either team.
I don't really like the Buccaneers running back situation whatsoever. Doug Martin's back, and he's not very good. So I don't know that I really trust anybody in that backfield. I do think that Giovanni Bernard, I didn't expect him to have a big week last week because it was his first game back from injury. They gave him a lot of touches, though. He's got as good as the Buccaneers have been playing lately, they haven't been great against the run. So I expect Bernard and Hill to be both startable. I think Bernard's got more upside, as he usually would have if they're both healthy. But I think you could start either of them.
Yeah, I'm taking a little peek here at my defensive chart here on Football Guys, and it looks like over the last 5 games, Tampa Bay has actually been a tougher matchup. I mean, they've allowed 5% less rushing yards and 2% less rushing touchdowns. So it's pretty close to even.
To disprove me my gut feelings with fact.
I don't know. My gut says Tampa Bay's bad.
Yeah, but they gave up 2 touchdowns to Matt Forte last week, so it's not like I was totally off. But yeah.
No. I'm not doing it to throw in your face.
You're just trying to make me look bad.
I'm trying to make you look
trying to make me look like a turkey.
Oh yes, exactly.
A jive turkey. All right.
You were a jive turkey. I like Hill more in this matchup than Giovanni Bernard. I think that maybe going forward, Hill's going to get just slightly more fantasy value in non-PPR leagues. And then Tampa Bay running backs, forget it. It's a wasteland. Ignore it. That whole backfield's in a food coma. Ignore it. Let's talk about Tennessee at Houston. Hey, it's Fitzmagic time. Ryan Fitzpatrick is back. He's the starter this week. He's one of the fresh.
He shaved his beard. Maybe he'll be good now. Maybe he's
like a reverse Samson.
Yes.
Jinx. Yeah. So Ryan Mallett is out for the year with an injured pectoral, and so we've got Ryan Fitzpatrick here. Do you think that this quarterback swap impacts the Houston? The value of the fantasy value of any of the Houston skill players here?
Not particularly. I mean, I think Mallett's a better player, and he would have been better for Andre Johnson and DeAndre Hopkins, but I don't really like I like the running game way more than I like the passing game.
Yeah, and speaking of which, it sounds like Arian Foster could play this week, though they're being super coy about whether he's going to play. And he's
Are they being Colt McCoy? Oh gosh, no! I'm infected with horrible punness. It was sorry.
It's a virus. It's spreading.
I apologize.
I don't. I'm having too much fun. I figure, if Foster's out, you got to start Blue. If Foster's in, you got to start Foster. I think that if they're going to play Foster, he's going to see at least 20 touches. So I think he's a top 5 running back if he's active. Maybe that's risky, but I like him.
I like Foster a lot too. I mean, he's been out a couple weeks. Hopefully that means he's okay. But it's tricky with these injuries. So, but if he's a full go, I expect him to have a huge game.
Yep, exactly. And I think if Foster's active, I wouldn't be chancing it with Blue because a lot of times we see Foster sort of like, oh yeah, I'm kind of okay. I'm going to push through and play, and then all of a sudden he gets 30 touches or something.
Yeah.
Then you mentioned Colt McCoy in the Washington at Indy game. RG3 is out. And Colt McCoy is in. They figured, hey, we're playing the Colts.
We spent
They
half
have
the
all
season
the
waiting for RG3 to come back on the show, and now he's gone.
And now he's gone. Yeah, well, they figure they're playing the Colts. They have all these Colts on the other side of the ball, and they're like, well, hold on. We've got one Colt. Here he comes. Our Colt versus your Colt. Let's go.
It's
Bring
like
it.
a Trojan cult.
Yeah.
Trojan horse stud. Anyway.
So it's gonna work out. He's like an inside spy because he's Colt McCoy. How do you think this changes the Redskins' offense having Colt McCoy at the helm?
We're getting worse and worse as the show goes on. I'm sorry. It's like,
and by worse you mean better.
Yes. I think actually it's a good thing for the Washington offense that Colt McCoy is playing. RG3 looks awful. Sorry to say that. And not that Colt McCoy is going to be great, but I think that it's better for guys like Pierre Garçon and Jordan Reed and Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah. If Jordan Reed gets out there this week, it sounds iffy, but he might make it out there. But I agree. I think Colt is a better play here for the Redskins. So hopefully they'll be able to put up a fight against Indy. Now, Indy hasn't exactly been rocking out the scoreboard the past few weeks. Is this a trap game for them? Are you nervous for the Colts here at all?
Well, I mean, last week we thought they were going to crush the Jaguars. Everybody did. Vegas thought they were huge, and they wound up crushing them. But it wasn't this offensive show. It was they completely suffocated them on defense. And Andrew Luck had 4 fumbles. He lost 2 of them. It just wasn't very good offensively. Washington's defense is not great, but they've been playing better than expected with all the injuries, and so we'll see. But it's Andrew Luck. He could go off for 4 touchdowns any game.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a big game here. I mean, Washington's run defense is a lot better than their pass defense, and the Colts' run offense is pretty horrible, and their passing game's amazing. So it just seems like
we were all bamboozled last week. At the last minute with Boom Heron.
Yeah.
We were bamboozled.
Oh, nice. but then Trent Richardson got this crappy touchdown, and he had the better fantasy day. Even though Boom Heron totally.
Neither of them were good though. Neither of them were very good. Yeah. I think didn't Richardson barely crack 10 points with that touchdown? It was just a bad day.
It was pretty dreadful. Yeah. Let's move on from that one and talk about our 4 p.m. Eastern games on Sunday.
Hey, you skipped the Giants and the Jaguars.
Oh, did I? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
That's because nobody cares. No.
This is a great game. This is a great game for matchups. We mentioned the Jags. They put up a fight against the Colts. I think some of that was the Colts, and some of that was the Jags' defense is actually stepping up a little bit here and there. The Giants, I think, are really good offense to start this week. How do you think the Jags are going to shut down the Giants the way they hurt the Colts?
I think this one is you were asking about a trap game. I think this is a trap for fantasy owners, but it's it's risky, but there's a lot of potential reward here. Eli Manning had a big game last week from a fantasy standpoint. I thought he would have one, and I was right. So no, I don't.
Nice.
Out of all the things I was wrong about, that's the one thing I was right. No, I think this week he could have another big game. I think the Jaguars, as much as they harassed Luck last week, Luck missed Reggie Wayne for another 75-yard touchdown, an easy one. He hit T.Y. Hilton for that long one, and then the Giants have Odell Beckham, Adele Beckham, Liddell, Patty, whatever.
OBJ,
ODB, and Ruben Randall. They got a good offense, I think, and they're at home. I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great plus matchup. I'm a little nervous about getting excited about sort of stacking Eli and OBJ after they were sort of the stack of the week last week. But this is such a juicy matchup; it's hard to ignore that. And speaking of that stack, our buddy who was a guest on our show a few weeks ago, John Lee, my long lost brother, ended up taking down the Fantasy Aces DFS big sort of live event this past weekend, and he had Eli and OBJ stacked in his lineup. So congrats to John Lee there. He got $40,000 on his 40th birthday.
Yeah, $40,000. Your long lost brother who owes you money, right?
Right. Yes. Yeah. Suddenly we're related.
But drinks on you in Vegas, John, if you're listening.
Oh yeah. He's totally up for that. Okay, now we'll move along. We know we've covered 9 games in the 1 p.m. slot. That's more games than you can shake a drumstick at, and we will move on to the 4 p.m. games. There's only 2 of them, and the first one is Arizona at Atlanta. And this just seems like a great matchup for the Arizona offense. But do you trust them to do anything with it? I mean, their rushing game has been pretty terrible, and they've got Drew what's his name at quarterback. Do you really trust this?
I tell you what, the Cardinals don't run a wishbone, but I wish that I had more players of their players to go in this weekend. No, I like them a lot this week.
I was looking at my crazy charts for offensive production over the last 5 weeks, and the Arizona Cardinals have been underperforming what their opponents usually allow by 36% in rushing yards and 19% in rushing TDs. They are pretty bad.
But you know
in
what?
Those categories.
You know what'll cure that? The Atlanta Falcons.
It's fair. That's fair. That's fair.
That's an offense that has given up a ton of rushing fantasy points on the ground. So I don't, not necessarily that Andre Ellington's going to go off for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns, but I think he'll be fine. The guy I really like this weekend is John Brown. He's had a couple down games. I think that he's going to break loose this week and have a big game.
Yeah. Well, I think that on the ground they can't do worse than the past 5 games where they've had 62 rushing yards per game on 24 attempts per game. That is pretty.
That's like abysmal. The polar opposite of the rookie season Andre Ellington had when he averaged like 5.5 yards a carry. He's like turned into it's like Rashard Mendenhall did a body snatch or something, and
exactly.
He's running back.
They're the second worst over the last 5 games, next to Tennessee, and good old Bishop Sankey over there. Let's talk about the. I don't know. The other thing with Andre Ellington, though, is they signed Michael Bush this week, who really isn't viable this week, or maybe at all. But it's clear that they don't want Andre Ellington to have the goal line role. They've got Bush now potentially in the mix, Stephon Taylor. They just got all these big backs that they want to sort of throw into the game, it seems like. And I think this is going to slowly eat away at Ellington's value, or what's left of it the rest of the season. So I'm a little nervous about Ellington in general for the rest of the season. But if he's going to blow up, it's going to be this week. So you could take a chance on him in a tourney play in DFS this week if you want.
Did we talk about the New Orleans the game? I think we missed it, didn't we? We did.
We missed the game.
It was my fault. I put together our agenda and I totally missed New Orleans at Pittsburgh at 1:00 this week.
Oh, let's talk about New Orleans at Pittsburgh.
Yes.
New Orleans had that big matchup against Baltimore that they lost again. To just make the AFC South or the NFC South even worse. What do you think about this situation? Mark Ingram had kind of an off game. I expect a bounce back here a little bit. Is there any guys you're looking for?
I love Le'Veon Bell this week. I think I'm going to try to spam him in all my DFS lineups, even cash or GPPs, just because I expect him to have a massive game.
Yeah, and Colston and Stills both had good games here with Cooks out and them playing from behind. I think Stills is the one that I like better in this situation. He's a guy that, if for some reason he's still available in your league or maybe he's a nice DFS play, I like Stills this week to keep up what he did with Cooks out. And then Pittsburgh, Le'Veon Bell, that's pretty much the big thing there. Okay, sorry we missed that one. We'll get back on track with the crazy shootout. New England at Green Bay. We're expecting a big game here. What was the stat you pulled about this game?
The over-under for this game is, can you guess? Can you guess what the over-under is for this game?
1 million.
It's just about. It's 60, which is an NFL record apparently. It's record for sports books with the NFL. It's ridiculous. They're expecting the Packers, and I don't blame them. Packers and Patriots are setting the world on fire right now on offense.
Yeah, this is going to be a crazy game. I think this is where you want to try to hunt for your tourney plays in daily fantasy sports if you can find a little bit of value. And Jonas Gray laid a goose egg or a turkey egg last week.
Didn't we say that to avoid him last week? We talked about that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we
It's
didn't
true.
expect a goose egg, but that news broke that he missed. He was overslept for practice after our show. So like that had that not happened, it might not have been so bad.
Yeah, and then they signed LeGarrette Blount, who ended up having a really good game. So the question is, should people be looking to LeGarrette Blount to start him in a positive matchup here against Green Bay this week, maybe as a flex?
No.
No,
Nah,
no.
maybe as a flex. I think we've seen Bill Belichick. I mean, we talked about this last week. It's Bill
Yeah,
Belichick,
yeah,
So be careful. Tread with
yeah.
caution.
No, you're right. You're right. He almost had me. Bill almost sucked me in, but you talked me off the ledge.
And Blunt might have a big game. He actually had like 2 in a row last year, so maybe that'll happen. But and it is a pretty good matchup. But I think that it might be the Shane Vereen show this week.
Could be. I think that Green Bay front is soft enough that I think this could be a big back game. And plus, playing on the road, trying to maybe slow down the rhythm of Green Bay, quiet the crowd. I kind of like Blunt here, but maybe I shouldn't be fooled here.
You don't think that Tom Brady is looking at Aaron Rodgers, who I have them. I'm looking at an awards watch for Bleacher Report, and I have Aaron Rodgers and Tom Brady 1-2 in the MVP race, and I think that's pretty fair. I think that's probably where most people are at right now. So Tom Brady's looking up at Aaron Rodgers, who's just annihilating the league right now, and saying, I got to put up big numbers. And that's how he's going to approach this game, because forget winning. Let's just put up big numbers, right?
I think that's what all pro quarterbacks think. I want the numbers, and that's all that matters. All right, I think I'm gonna put take a little bit of a firmer stance here. I'm gonna say Blunt's gonna have a good game, and it's gonna be the last good game by a power back for New England for the rest of the season. So I'm gonna go out on a limb with Blunt here, and maybe Bill Belichick will burn me again, but I'm going to go with it. Let's talk about Sunday Night Football. We've got Denver at Kansas City, an important divisional battle, especially since they're playing a game of which team can lose to the worst team? No, I can. No, I can. No, I can. So we got Denver at Kansas City. Hopefully they'll both get their act together and play better. And
hey. Denver beat a pretty good team last week. They beat the Dolphins, who it was a pretty good game actually.
Yeah, no, I'm not talking about last week. That I was trying to ignore the fact that the Dolphins have blown it at the end of 3 games this year against good teams that they should have won.
They've lost to the Packers, the Lions, and the Broncos by combined 10 points, and all of them were last-minute losses. It's ridiculous.
It's painful. Anyway, so I was just imagining Denver losing to St. Louis and just ignoring the fact that they beat our Dolphins last week. But Kansas City sure did one up.
Yeah, no, they deserve the ridicule. And the Oakland Raiders, it's a divisional game. You never know what's going to happen, but it's the Oakland Raiders. They were winless. How do you handle a winless team in your own division? Their first win.
Yeah, and the Raiders are playing with one hand behind their back because half their salary cap this year was dedicated to guys who aren't even on their roster. They basically have half of a salary to pay their team. Anyway, we didn't talk about Latavius Murray here, did we? We already covered.
No, we didn't. I'm gonna take over here for a minute to let your microphone cool off, because it's mad, it's angry right now. Somebody started watching Netflix earlier this week. Latavius Murray. He was completely off my radar last week, and I even got a question about him on the radio, and I was like, "What? Why are people talking about Latavius Murray?" I must have been, in a coma last week or something. Totally missed out. And even if I had known about it, I would have been like, I don't know. I don't think he's got upside, but 4 touches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's ridiculous. Of course, he's concussed right now. He's going through the protocol. He did practice today. He's not fully cleared, so I don't know if he goes. I think I might give him a shot in a lot of formats. I don't know. What do you think about Murray this week?
Yeah, I like him a lot. I'm looking at my rankings here a little bit. Right now, I've got him at running back 4. I'm expecting expecting him to play, and they're at St. Louis. This is actually another game that skipped over by accident in the 1 p.m. Eastern slot here, and I think Murray is a good play here against St. Louis. And it's kind of easy to forget about this game because Oakland at St. Louis, that doesn't sound like a very exciting game. But we saw Stedman Bailey break out a little bit last week on the Rams. The week before that, it was like Britt. Is there any Ram you can trust? Actually, is there any player here you would start on either team other than Murray?
For you listeners out there, Austin has been sucked into a wormhole. So he's currently transmitting from Matthew McConaughey's spaceship. So just bear with him right now, and he's pouting about it. I was so busy being transfixed by your Ultron Echo voice that I wasn't even paying attention to what you were saying. I think you said something about Stedman Bailey. I don't know. I actually really like Trey Mason this week for St. Louis. I'm just gonna go ahead and say what I wanted to say. I don't care what you said. So Trey Mason, it's a great matchup, I think, and he's getting a lot of touches. I think he's a good cash game guy with some upside, and the Raiders, they don't have a very good run defense. I mean, they've gotten a little bit better, but all year long they've been giving up a ton of fantasy points. I'm just going to tap dance here until Austin is finished fixing his microphone situation. So we're done looking at. I'm sorry. Monday night. The Dolphins face the Jets on Monday Night Football, and they should win by 50 points, right? But it's probably going to be something like 24-21, and it's going to be some sort of frustrating thing for fantasy owners. Ryan Tannehill should have a good game. That pass defense is terrible for the Jets. So I'm hoping, from a fantasy standpoint, I hope that I have Tannehill ranked, I think, number 7 or 8 this week. I like Mike Wallace. I like Jarvis Landry. I even like Charles Clay if he can play. Don't really like their own game. What do you think, Austin?
I think. Can you hear me? Am I normal?
Yes. All right.
Oh yes, awesome. Geno Smith is starting for the Jets, so this is going to change everything for them.
Yes.
Vic got benched.
Yes, absolutely everything.
It changes so much that Miami should be in your lineups as a defensive play. I think you can trust the Miami starters here. Although I'm gonna rank Mike Wallace below Landry this week. I think
that makes sense. I mean, Landry's. I saw someone tweet today that Landry scored over 12 PPR points in each of the last 4 games, and Wallace, while he's scoring touchdowns a decent amount this year, he's just not getting a ton of targets. He went for like 3 and 31 and a touchdown last week, which is fine, but it's not a great DFS score.
Yeah, exactly. And so, but I like Landry and I like Tannehill a lot. I think Tannehill should be in a lot of lineups this week. I have him really high in my rankings, and I think he's gonna, eat up that Jets secondary in this matchup.
Speaking of wait. Before we get to DFS, go to the9round.com where you can find all our Week 13 rankings. I don't know. Did you add something new this week, or was that just a?
No, I did.
Yes.
I did. So now, in addition to our rankings on that site, there is this little embedded widget that looks at our rankings and gives you suggestions as to what your daily fantasy values would be at FanDuel and at DraftKings. So go check that out.
It's automated, but yes.
It's automated. Yes, exactly. It looks at our rankings and it tells you where the values might be based on our rankings for your potential picks in FanDuel and DraftKings. So check that out. It's a new addition to the website for this week, and we'll have that going forward for the rest of the season. Let us know what you think of that. That's courtesy of our friends over at Fantasy Pros, where Alex and I do our rankings every week. So check that out. So now on to our DraftKings picks of the week. Tell me about your stacks of the week. You kind of teased this earlier.
Well, speaking of Ryan Tannehill, I think that over at DraftKings, he and Mike Wallace, I know that you like Jarvis Landry better. I think that Wallace is still a pretty good GPP play. This could be the week where they hook up for a long touchdown. And so I think that just the cost is really nice. Tannehill's only 6,900, and Wallace is only 4,600. He's way down from earlier this season, despite having scored a touchdown and had a pretty good day last week. So, and the matchups. I don't know what the pricing is about with Wallace, but he's a good stack. That's a good stack for you right there.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. And Mike Wallace is cheaper than Landry at DraftKings, and I think he has the more upside. So I think he's a great stack tourney play. I think it's a great call. He was on my list as well. Who else do you have on your list here?
Okay, so this is I think in my heart, this is my favorite stack of the entire season.
Whoa, bold
Yes,
call.
I love this stack. I'm gonna marry this stack. No, Tom
Why
Brady.
don't you marry it?
Exactly.
Sorry, I had to channel Pee Wee Herman for a second.
Tom Brady and Brandon LaFell. It's a great cash game and GPP stack. I think. It's not that cheap, but 8,400 for Brady, 6,100 for LaFell. That's not too bad. You can get a lot. You can get a lot. Pay a lot more for different stacks. And I think again, this game in Green Bay is going to be high scoring. We saw last week. Not only did Teddy Bridgewater, hook up with Charles Johnson a few times deep. But he also missed another one where Charles Johnson got wide open for a touchdown and he just missed him. So I think that Brady's going to take a few deep shots with LaFell, who has kind of been his deep target this year. And I would not be surprised if we saw a 2-touchdown game from LaFell.
Yeah, I like both of those calls. Those are guys I have on my list. Eli and OBJ is another one I might consider, but I like those two that you mentioned a lot. Another guy that I like just at QB, not necessarily for stacking, is actually Colt McCoy. He's at the baseline price of only $5K. If you're looking for a cheap quarterback, I think Colt McCoy.
Looking for a good Black Friday deal.
Yeah, exactly. Black Friday deals. Go get out in line and get yourself some Colt McCoy. Only $9.99. Tell me about a couple of quarterbacks you've got as Black Friday steals.
I would, Joe Flacco's not exactly a steal, but I like him at 7,000 against San Diego. And then Alex Smith, he's only 6,200, facing the Broncos at home. Last time, we thought it would have been a good play. He didn't. I don't think. I can't. This is off the top of my head, but I don't think that he had a huge game, and that's because the Chiefs did. They tried to control the clock. They ran the ball a lot. I expect to see more of that, but I think that the Broncos probably get out to a big lead this week, and I think that just a game script thing. I think Alex Smith is going to have to throw the ball, so we'll see some action there.
Yeah, I think generally when Alex Smith reaches his upside potential, he gets it with a little extra rushing yards. And so I think if he gets that, he becomes a good play. I think he's a better play for cash games than he is for tournaments because I think his upside is a little bit capped, even in a matchup where this should be one of his bigger games of the year. I think they're still going to be trying to use Jamal Charles in the running game, even when they're down a little bit. Hopefully, Andy Reid keep running that ball, and even in a tough matchup against the Denver defense, they just can't do a whole lot through the air. So Alex Smith, I think, is a good cash game play there. At running back, we talked a little bit about Latavius Murray. He's only 3,800 at DraftKings. I like him. And we mentioned Justin Forsett a little bit earlier. I like him at 6,300 against San Diego. And we also mentioned Isaiah Crowell. I like him at 4,600 at Buffalo. Like we said, Buffalo has actually been struggling a little against the run as of late. Tell me about some of the running backs you like.
I talked about Le'Veon Bell and I professed my love for him as well earlier. So I think that he's a great anchor. He's not cheap, but a good guy to have in cash games at 8,700 against New Orleans. And then Trey Mason, I talked about him a little bit. He's only 4,600, and it's a good matchup, a pretty decent cash game guy, and not a bad GPP option either, I think.
Yeah, he's a guy that I leaned on last week in quite a few lineups, and he burned me. But I think this is a chance to go back to the well. I think this is a good call here at only 4,600. I also like Alfred Morris. He's not a PPR stud in DraftKings format, but I like him as a cash game play at only 5,400 against the Colts. I mean, we saw what Jonas Gray was able to do against the Colts just a couple of weeks ago. Morris could have similar success with the Redskins, wanting to get the crowd out of it there in Indianapolis and also sort of take pressure off of Colt McCoy in that matchup. Wide receiver, you already mentioned Mike Wallace as a good play. I agree with that.
I think we have him listed 3 times in here. I guess we love him.
We love Mike Wallace. It's just, yeah.
I even have him listed from last week.
I love it. And we mentioned Charles Johnson as well, Minnesota receiver. He's only 4K. I think that's a good one there. Who else you got at receiver?
I like Keenan Allen. I think he's a good cash game guy against Baltimore. Baltimore secondary that is, kind of struggling with injuries right now, and he's a guy that's getting a lot of targets. And he broke loose last week and scored a touchdown. Hopefully that bodes well for more fantasy scoring.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good call. At tight end, I feel like I'm sort of throwing a dart sometimes if I'm not
Yeah,
taking
no,
one of the
last week
top
was
guys.
yeah, it was weird last week. Like, the past couple weeks at tight end have been just awful. I really liked Rob Gronkowski, and Tim Wright stole his touchdowns. It's
Yeah.
just been a weird couple weeks.
Now, speaking of Tim Wright, I mean, I figure whatever. If you're going to throw a dart at a tight end, why not Tim Wright for only 3,400 in a tourney play? That's a really risky play because I don't.
DraftKings doesn't trust that those touchdowns are going to hold up, as
Nope.
neither should we. But you never know what'll happen.
He's definitely not a cash game play, that's for sure. But
Yeah.
at 3,400, if you're getting down that low and you need a cheap tight end, might as well. Kyle Rudolph, I think, is a more sort of stable choice in that price range. He's only 3,400 versus Carolina, and he could put up 50 yards. It's kind of like his deal, which is kind of good for tight ends these days. And he's got a pretty good chance of scoring a touchdown, just because he's a good red zone presence. So I like Kyle Rudolph this week a lot too. How about you?
I like Charles Clay if he's healthy. I think that the Jets have given up a ton of fantasy points this season to the tight end position. He's kind of a late swap guy. John Lee talks about this in some of his work. Having a guy that you can swap out late, in case you suspect that a lot of players are own that guy. And you can swap him out to kind of get a differentiation. But he's only 3,400, so it's not like you would have a lot of wiggle room. And he's injured, so you don't know what will happen. But I think that if he's healthy, he's a great guy to start against the Jets.
Yeah, that brings up a good point of strategy, which is I think a lot of DFS players, more like beginner players, miss out on a bit of strategy where you want to make sure your flex spot at DraftKings is the latest game possible and it's the highest priced guy as possible so that you have the most flexibility to swap that guy out later. So make sure that when you set your lineups and you decide on your guys that you've got your latest playing player in that flex spot so that you have choices if you need them in the later games. That DraftKings setup offers a lot of strategy with that flex spot. At defense, I really like the Giants. We both got them on our list. They're going up against Jacksonville, and they're only 2,800.
Start your defense against Jacksonville.
That's the rule, man. And then I like Houston versus Tennessee. They're only 3,100. Who else you got here?
The Raiders are the cheap. They're minimum priced at 2,300 at DraftKings, and I don't love them, but if you want to save some money and get a team that they're playing, they played well last week. They're playing a St. Louis team that has given up a lot of fantasy points to opposing defenses, like they've given up a lot of pick sixes and whatnot. I think that they're pretty decent dart there.
Yeah, agreed. Let's talk about FanDuel a little bit. And I didn't. What's that?
No, let's not.
Let's not. I was going to use our crazy tool over on our website.
Oh yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah.
I'm just going to pick a couple players and see who they're recommending based on my rankings. This is totally on the fly, and I'm going.
No offense to FanDuel. No offense to FanDuel. That was just it's a short week. I did not get to prepare for FanDuel this week.
Yeah. No, we love FanDuel. They've got a great product. We just happen to not prepare quite as well for them this week. What I'm doing is I'm looking at the cost per point column, and I'm going down that, and I'm seeing a few values here, but it's a lot of the same guys we mentioned before. Some of the Thursday guys, I've got Tony Romo as a good play. I've also got Tannehill on here, seems like a good play, and Eli Manning I've got ranked high enough to be a good value in terms of their pricing at quarterback. And then I'm also going to flip over to running backs here and again go down this column and sort of look at who the values are. Rashad Jennings against Jacksonville could be a good play here at only 7,100. And I've also got Shane Vereen if you want to maybe take a little bit of a chance on Bill Belichick trying to fool you again over there in New England. It's going to be a high-scoring game, so it's a good tourney chance you could take there. And then at wide receiver, I'm just going to flip through this quickly. I've got, sometimes you look at the price and then you're like, okay, what name is that? And you look over at the name and you're like, no, I don't think so. Kenny Stills, I think, is a good play at only 5,100 over at FanDuel. That's a guy I'd play in a tournament based on his pricing here. Interesting. Yeah, I'm not finding a ton of wide receiver value this week on either site. Maybe that has something to do with my rankings. I need to take a look at that a little bit. And then at tight end, it's kind of a mess, it looks like. It's recommending I just play Jimmy Graham. They're just like, whatever. Pay up. Pay your $7,500.
What about Travis Kelce? I mean, he's a pretty good price on both sides, I think.
Yeah, he's only 5,300. I think if Fasano sits, and it sounds, he didn't practice today. If Fasano sits, especially against Denver, because Kelsey's probably their best weapon in the passing game, and they're probably going to be passing to keep up with Denver. So I think that's a decent call there, 5,300 for Kelsey. That's a good one. And then, kickers, defense. You can check out the site. Check out the9route.com. You can kind of see some of the different suggestions it has on there.
I think that you have to start Des Bryant this week if you're playing in Thursday matchups on FanDuel. He's only 8,000, and that seems really low for Des Bryant against the Philadelphia Eagles.
Yeah, I've got it at 80. I got it at 8,800 here, but still, I think it's
8,800. My eyes are failing me. 8,800. That's still not a bad price. For a guy who's probably going to be in the top 5, maybe the top receiver this week.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's just such a good matchup. All right, man. That about does it. We've covered all of our daily fantasy sports picks. We've gotten our fill. We're in a food coma, stuffed with fantasy goodness. What should people be on the lookout for in this week that you've got out already or coming out?
Oh, just keep a lookout for safe driving. Just practice safe driving. I mean, just your typical fare of stuff for me this week. I told you I'm doing this awards article over Bleacher Report. We'll see if I'm kind of weighing my articles at Football Guys this week, just because it's Thanksgiving and I don't want my wife to kill me. So they might be a little late. They might be a little light. But keep an eye out.
Yeah, but we'll always have our rankings updated right until the last minute before those kickoffs, so be sure to check out our site for the rankings. You can find the normalized strength of schedule tool that I've been referencing on the show. You can find that over at Football Guys. I post that every Tuesday, and so it's already up for Week 13. Go check that out if you need help finding matchups or which defense has the best schedule for the rest of the year or things like that. You can use that tool to check it out. All kinds of data. That's all we got for our show, man. Thanks so much. Thanks for a special pun-filled Thanksgiving episode. It was a lot of fun, and sorry about my mic. I don't know what's going on there. What are you gonna
do? They figured out that we're trying to quit at 10, so they were like, we're gonna get him early this time.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all we have. If you want to reach Alex on Twitter, he's at Alex Miglio. If you want to find me on Twitter, I'm at Austin NFL. Find all our stuff at footballguys.com and Bleacher Report and all over the place on the interwebs. Until next time, may your players stay healthy, may your sleepers wake up, and your Monday nights be filled with miraculous comebacks. Happy Thanksgiving!
Peek and bye.